Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Erin Mitchell's latest webinar, and it's one that is probably going to be very close to my heart as a parent, so I'm looking forward to hearing what Sue has to say. The seminar this morning is Lockdown Homeschooling and Co-Parenting with parenting expert Sue Atkins. Sue, you may recognise from her various TV work, so she does BBC, Sky, This Morning, etc., or you may well have one of her books on your bookshelf, and if you have, I imagine you have used it repeatedly over the last 7 weeks or so during lockdown. Myself, I'm a partner in our family law team based in Manchester. Our family law team do the full gamut of work in relation to the breakdown of the relationship, ranging from dividing up the finances to seeking consensus in terms of the time that the children spend with each parent. On a personal note, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. My wife and I are trying to juggle the demands of home life, work life, and being good parents. So this webinar could not come at a better time. In terms of the webinars generally, we hope that you find them useful at this time of crisis. The idea is that we bring communities, our clients, and our colleagues together to work with each other and have some comfort with each other. So in terms of this webinar, thank you very much for those who have already submitted some questions. We've got them ready. If you do have questions as we go, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your webinar screen, so you can submit them there. If you have any questions after the event, you can also use our email address, which is events@erinmitchell, which you'll see on the screen at some point. And we will come back to you through them. In terms of the webinars themselves, these are weekly events. So if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear them. You can go to our website hub on the coronavirus crisis, and you can see what we cover there, which ranges from all our legal services and financial issues in relation to this crisis at the moment. The only thing I will say more before I hand over to Sue is that we are recording this, so if you want us to send it to you afterwards, of course you will get it, and then you can refresh your memories as to what Sue's expertise gives to us. So, Sue, I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for joining us. I hope you find it helpful. I'm here to be of support in any way I can, and please, you can email me afterwards if you need some more advice, or join me on my Facebook Lives or my Instagram Lives, where I answer lots of questions as well. So that's who I am and what I do, and thank you very much for the very gracious introduction. I'm looking forward to talking to you about all sorts of aspects of homeschooling, perhaps. Things change daily, let alone weekly, so, you know, everything keeps getting updated. But let's start by looking at perhaps homeschooling. And to get good at something, you have to start out not being very good at it. And that's forgiving you if you're finding it really tough to be a teacher. Now, I'm a former deputy head and class teacher for over 22 years. And, you know, I hopefully made it look easy, but it really isn't easy. And during a time of a pandemic like this, which is really unusual, I think the most important thing you should be thinking about is the mental health and well-being of your children, not whether they've learnt their 7 times table. Now, I know that varies with which age range they are and which year group they're in. I have a program for primary to secondary children that I've been working on for about 9 months, to help children make that transition from year 6 into year 7, and we're not sure whether they're going back to school just yet, but it looks probably likely. But I also think teach your child that failure or making a mistake is a stepping stone to success. A lot of parents forget that, really, I think. So let's start. I think it's helpful, and we've been in lockdown for a little while now, but it is helpful to be mindful of how you speak about having your children home indefinitely. Children are watching, looking, learning and listening and observing you all the time, whether we like it or not. And they take their lead from you. So I think it's very important that you're mindful about how you talk about them being around you all the time. how you talk about the virus, how you address the pandemic, generally speaking, and how you speak about what may be happening around going back to school and starting off perhaps in a new class or in a new year later on. Because how you speak about all of these things affects your children's well-being, mental health, and how they see the world, of course, as too. So don't speak about them as sort of being a bit of a nuisance. It's all being a bit of a drag. It's a bit inconvenient because you're trying to juggle work. Because, of course, that will damage their self-esteem and their self-confidence. And my whole life's work, everything I do is to help children have a happy childhood and to have strong self-esteem and strong confidence. So I'm very mindful of your influence in that. Don't underestimate it. Use this time wisely. How about changing your mindset, changing your habits, creating new habits and routines and ways of thinking? I want you to keep the longer term, bigger picture, and of course don't catastrophize, because great things actually are going to come from this adversity, from this pause to ponder reset button, I call it. There'll be very much more stronger relationships with children and their dads and their mums, hopefully from working at home, eating together, playing together. There'll be appreciation of the small stuff eventually when we're able to go out and have cups of coffee again with friends and hug elderly loved ones. And when your children do return to school, it will be changed, it will be very different, but it will be lovely for them to see their friends and to hopefully play again together, albeit in perhaps a different way, and very mindful of washing hands all the time. But there will be a shift in culture for your kids as well. We are appreciating and being very grateful for people who are usually a little bit lost in society, sometimes like the carers or the dustman or the postman. So, there's going to be a shift in culture, and by going out on Thursdays at 8 o'clock to clap, you're passing on your values all the time to your children about appreciation for those people who are helping keeping society going. I think it's important that we are all interrelated, we're all connected, we're beginning to realise that. So there's a post that floats around social media that says, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. So perhaps that's a lesson for us all there to think about. So let's have a look at some ways to handle homeschooling. Now, I want you to think of yourself. You don't have to be a homeschooling ninja, because these are very unusual times. You don't have to do copious amounts of worksheets. I know that some schools are sending home a great deal of information and expecting kids to do all sorts of things, but my advice is to break up the day and to break up the week. So you don't have to be a Butlins Redcoat or a Mary Poppins or a superhero. I think you don't have to have unrealistic expectations about homeschooling, entertaining them, or being a perfect parent. But I do think planning and thinking ahead about how this is going to work for your family in the short term and in the long term is a good idea. Now, you've got used to it for quite a few weeks. Take stock. I call it a snapshot. Just pause to ponder. I'm always talking about a pause to ponder, which is an imaginary pausing button like on a remote control. Snapshot how you're doing, how the kids are doing, how's the family doing, so you get a bigger picture. It will shift your perspective about homeschooling. Is there perhaps something you would like to step up or step down from around the day with them? It's a good idea, as you've probably got into now, some sort of routines. But also it's about creating new routines so that children feel safe and secure, because children love routines. They like getting up at a regular time. They like going to bed at a certain time. They like bath time if they're young at a certain time, because they know the routine. They know what's coming next. Obviously, get some exercise at a chosen time and make that a habit. Eat healthy meals together. That could be a wonderful new habit that I think a lot of people have lost over the years. Have some fun and connect to your kids, and don't always nag about eating the broccoli and holding their knife and fork properly. I think it's helpful to explain why you're keeping safe and healthy and focus on the positive aspects. They can hear a lot of news on TV and the way you speak to your partner, perhaps, or your family when you're together, about the negativity. And let's face it, there can be quite a lot of uncertainty at the moment. So With younger children, wash hands regularly, of course, but sing a song. And I didn't like it linked to happy birthday, because happy birthday is a joyous time. You didn't want to, in my head, link washing your hands through a pandemic virus as the best way to think about washing your hands. So, you know, think of a different one. There's loads of them out there. My friend Action Amanda has a washing your hands story song for young children. But focus on any age on the positive aspects of keeping ourselves safe, keeping ourselves healthy, the routines that we can do. And as we know, children are not necessarily affected, thank goodness, so badly by the virus as perhaps other age groups. I wrote a book with Tina Stubbs called Antiviral and the Virus. It's the cheapest you can make it on Amazon. It's something like $1.99. It's a lovely rhyming story all around, you know, beating the virus and how to cope with the virus, and it's all in rhyme and fun. And all the proceeds are going to the NHS, like everyone's trying to do their bit. So back to routines. Play outside, of course, in the garden to let off some steam. Boys in particular, sorry to be gender specific, but boys have a lot of energy and very physical. They need to let off that steam by running about in the garden, kicking a ball, playing, climbing a tree, building a den, because that then helps them release some endorphins and it helps them feel better. And also it's a good idea for all children to get out regularly into the fresh air. Let's look at, of course, the next thing, which is quite a challenge that I get asked a great deal about. Be a media mentor. Do control the use of technology and screens. Of course, we're using it far more. We're all using it, and it has some fantastic benefits. But I think it's nice if you think of yourself as a media mentor. What you do with your phone, how often you're on your screen, they're watching and learning from you too. So don't be sort of hypocritical about, oh, get off, when actually you're on it all the time and go, yes, just in a minute. So control the use of your technology as well. And, of course, no screens at least 1 hour before bedtime. Have device-free dinners. That's a simple way of doing it. I remember talking about Rod Stewart. He gets all his kids to put their devices into a hat and then he locks them in a cupboard. Browse the internet together. Get interested in what your kids are interested in. You could learn all sorts of things. Tell me why you like that, that game. Tell me why you listen to that music. Get involved. Get connected. Don't be kind of always judging them and criticizing your kids around what they like to do online. Of course, plan for some fun non-screen activities. That's very important. I talk about ING activities, which is, playing, cooking, baking. It used to be cycling, things outside, bowling it used to be. But anything where you're doing something together that's fun gets you off the screens. We do pool. I bought a pool set, and we go off and have a championship. I have to say my children are 27 and 25, and my daughter's not locked down with me. But we do have championships. I won it first, so of course I'm not competitive at all, but my son has won it since. Anyway, it doesn't matter what you're doing. I want happy memories of this time with my own children as well. And in fact, it's lovely to have my son and his girlfriend here together with, cooking and talking and chatting and playing all sorts of games that we have never played before, like Articulate. Anyway, encourage your children to switch off the devices on their own, because that then starts to take ownership of using the screens. With teenagers who are totally addicted to it and want to talk to their friends, have a chat about what do you think is, reasonable time. And also, don't be frightened to tell them that you want them off at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whenever it is. You don't want them on social media at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're not sleeping. It can cause anxiety and all sorts of things. So think of yourself as a media mentor. Again, this is another one, play board games. You could have, there's a friend of mine, actually, I've interviewed her on my podcast. She is an expert in board games. Now, I didn't know you could have so many. Short ones, little ones, long ones, fun ones, all sorts, not just me sort of thinking, oh, let's play Monopoly, it takes 3 days, and let's get the Scrabble out because I'm useless at it. But with children, coming together with board games is a really lovely antidote to the screen. You laugh, you chat, you share, they take turns. There's all sorts of things happening around board games and memories that you're making. If you're interested in Ellie Dix, she has massive amounts of really interesting stuff all around board games. It's thedarkimp.com. And I do recommend having a board game night. We have a Wednesday, sometimes on a Saturday. You could have a film day, Friday film night or something. How about letting your kids watch some of their old favourites from when they were little, or maybe some classics, you know, I don't know, what's his name? Humphrey Bogart. I don't know, some of those old movies, black and white ones. You can get engaged in all sorts of things and come together, connect, so that you're not just always anxious. You create memories that last a lifetime by doing stuff. With other kids, do experiments. Go on mini beast hunts and get yourself outside and get the binoculars out. I actually think as a former educator, this is a wonderful opportunity for your children to broaden their education. We had become very obsessed with league tables, with data, and teachers teaching to the test. So hey-ho now, isn't it extraordinary? Possibly this is an opportunity for your children to really get interested in something where they get really involved. They can concentrate for ages. Perhaps it's something to do with the planet or conservation. Children certainly really do see themselves as innovators these days. And of course, this is an opportunity to develop their interests and their hobbies. They can look at TED Talks. They're fantastic. They can listen to podcasts. They can download Audible. There's all sorts of things they can do. One of the things I think that would be really great as a former deputy head is reading. Now, so often with children, certainly around about the age of 9, we stop reading to them. But actually, it's a wonderful thing to be read to. And reading and keeping reading going is one of the most important things. You give a lifelong love of learning to a child. You give them a gift if you can help them enjoy stories because they can escape into a different world on their own. The poems as well. So bring back the joy of reading, either reading with them, to them, or sharing a story. That bonding up on a settee or laughing at night is a wonderful moment to reassure and chat. Children often open up and talk when they're relaxed, and reading around the story is often a good idea. Also, you can get stories that are linked to any little problems. If they have nightmares or if they're starting school, you can get books all around those topics that introduce the conversation. And another thing I think is quite good, I do this myself, provide a mixture of places to spend time in to add variety to the day. So quiet places where they can work, perhaps that they associate with maybe doing a bit of homework or some of the online learning. Perhaps then at the kitchen table, there could be lunchtime reading in the sitting room. There could be an afternoon play in the garden. Break up your house and look at your spaces and use them creatively. With teenagers, I often suggest, you know, you may have a spare room. Well, you haven't got many visitors at the moment. How about pushing the bed to one side, creating a den and a safe space for your teen to escape from you? Because let's face it, that's what the teenage years are all about, trying to become independent. And, you know, sometimes they're locked down with you now, and sometimes that works, and sometimes they need to get away and talk to their friends. So creating a den or going down into the shed and converting that into a bit of a space for them where they can spend time sort of on their own or doing their own thing will earn you a great deal of brownie points, I reckon, later on. Use this time also, I think, to find physical activities to do online. We all know about Joe Wicks, but there are an awful lot of wonderful people like Phonic Stars doing wonderful stuff with younger children. They're not famous, they're not rich, but they are amazing. SEM Blogs Resources, she's a wonderful resource to go to around anything to do with children with additional needs. Also, you know, the BBC have released a swathe of stuff to keep fit, keep active, so go and explore all of those things. Also, you could use this time, I feel, to broaden your child's worldview. I mean, you could embrace diversity. For younger children, why not, you know, watch JoJo and Gran Gran? It's an absolutely amazing, lovely new cartoon with a black family from St. Lucia. In fact, my friend wrote the storybook, and now she's published in all over the world with CBeebies. But it's not the reason I'm promoting it. It's just delightful. It's an opportunity for different cultures. There's Hattie's Friends. She writes books around children with disabilities and all sorts of things. So use this time, this reading time, to broaden your child's experiences of the world. There's JoJo and Gran Gran. Now, the other thing is change your mindset. Don't see your kids, as I've mentioned before, as a pain, a drag, a nuisance. Look for ways to have some fun with them. Discover more about each other. I have a client at the moment, and they're in lockdown with their 11-year-old, and the dad's a doctor, and he has been enormously busy. But suddenly, he's spending great deals of time with his son, discovering all sorts of interesting things. He didn't know he loved chess. He didn't know he loved to bake bread. So they're coming together in this time to bond up. So it's a wonderful time, actually, to create positive memories that will last a lifetime around this time. And if you're looking for online resources that, of course, you may not have heard of on any subject, on Twitter, there's Twinkle Resources. I'm up there on one of their podcasts, it's highly recommended. But there's, I told you, SEN Resource Blog. There's Kim_Benham for early years. There's EY_Matters. And, of course, there's the new BBC Bite Size all around sort of learning for older children. Encourage your child to use breaks to catch up with a friend because they need that social skill. Someone asked me on my Instagram Live recently, I'm worried about my 2-year-old and social skills. Keep the bigger picture. This child is only 2. They have their whole lifetime to develop the social skills that they will need throughout their life. This is only a small period of time. It seems very long to us. Every day is a bit Groundhog Day. But over the course of their lifetime, a child will not, be damaged by not playing with a friend. They'll be bonded closely to their brothers and sisters, perhaps. They'll be bonded and close to you. You can teach them social skills through talking, listening, playing with them. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Use this time, of course, to reach out to elderly relatives using FaceTime or Skype, which you're probably doing already. But again, put boundaries around it. Don't let them be on there forever and ever. It's not good for them. And as I say, be careful about how much time they spend online. Have that balance around what you feel around your homeschooling is the right thing for your child. Be guided by the school, but these are unusual circumstances. And again, I've written a lot around this whole business about returning to school, but that's another matter. But one of the things is to set aside sometime each day, I would say, for creative child-led activities. No matter how old your kids are, if they're teenagers, you could get into making videos. You could learn how to do some decent photography. Children love to cut and stick and paste if they're very young. Whatever is creative, just let them enjoy doing it and be led by them. You don't always have to tell them what to do. But creativity is a very good antidote to sort of despair and worry and anxiety. Being focused, being creative is good for concentration and releases endorphins. So set aside, as I said, for all of those things. You can do cooking, you can do painting, you can make, you can play a musical instrument, you could learn to sew. How about that? You could learn to knit, cook. I mean, older kids, they could learn how to change a tire if you're feeling really, robust. They could certainly learn how to boil an egg if they're going to go off to university and cook spaghetti bolognese. So, use your imagination. That's a creative-led activity. Younger kids go out and build dens, climb trees, and have fun outdoors. Now, another idea is to reach out to other parents to pool their ideas online on Facebook. I mean, my goodness, there are loads of people out there. It's not a competition. You don't have to be the best parent, the best homeschooler, the best cook, the tidiest house. Cut yourself some slack. But talking to other parents, you go, oh, that's a good idea. I haven't thought of doing that. Oh, this works for us. Oh, do you want to do that? So reaching out to other parents, I think, is a really good idea for maths ideas or activities, recipes, science experiments. Find out what's working for them. The other thing is, I think you need to remember that homeschooling is a bit like parenting. Some days will be amazing and you'll be very grateful for them, and other days you'll wonder why you have to endure all this. Be honest. But don't forget and bear in mind that your kids may be feeling exactly the same as being stuck home with you too. So some days you'll thrive and some days you'll simply survive, and that is okay. But whatever the case, don't do it alone. Even if you're quarantined and you have to self-isolate, you have the ability to call and text friends and family for support. So do take advantage of that and look after your own mental health and well-being. Now, I have written a lot about top 20 working from home tips, which you can see at the bottom of the screen there. If you're interested in my blog, well, they're articles really, and I've written thousands of them over the last 15 years to help you in any shape or form of what you might be going through. So head over to my website to have a look at about juggling from juggling home and work. But I want you to get some me time. Very, very important. We forget ourselves sometimes. And, you know, for mums, very busy, juggling all sorts of things. And I read an article actually that mums are doing, sorry about this, but an hour and a half extra than dad over a course of a day, doing the homework and doing the, you know, the home stuff as well, no matter who they are and no matter how high flying they are. So make sure you do recharge your batteries. Go and get some me time. It could be a scented bath with nice candles. It could be reading, jogging, running. Look after your own mental health, because it's a bit like oxygen. You've got to look after yourself first if you're in an aeroplane, which we won't be traveling on for quite some time, so that you can then look after your children and your family. So always take care of yourself first. Then you need to think about we time. Very important in lockdown to keep your own relationship going with your partner. It's very easy to get swamped with all the stuff you're doing. You know, kids are in bed, glass of wine, cup of coffee, have a chin wag, have a chat, connect, laugh, watch a bit of Netflix, whatever you do, do some quizzes or whatever you do with family when the kids are in bed. Keep your own life going. That will sustain you, because we just don't know how long this is going to last. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So take care of yourself. So there's me time, we time, and then there's our time, where you come together with the kids. Maybe you can get out more now and cycle or run or jump or do whatever you do that's fun. But it's our time as a family for fun, not for nagging and doing homeschooling and all that sort of thing. There you go. Get yourself out there. Have a bit of fun with the kids. Let's look at some positive parenting tips. Well, I think it's important that you learn to respond to your children rather than react. This is a very important topic for me. I have something called the pause button, which is like on your remote control on the TV. It just helps you to, when things are going a bit wrong and going a bit pear-shaped, you just imaginally press your pause button, take a physical step back, because this detaches you from the circumstances that you find yourself in, and then just ask yourself a question. Is what I'm going to say now going to bring me closer to my kids or further away? Because that is a moment of detachment that will help you not damage their self-esteem, not say something you will later regret. It helps you get back in the pause moment, so you can react and respond rather than just instantly react, saying things that come off the top of your head when you're angry. Also, then get very specific. You know, can you take the wet towel, please, off my bed and hang it up on the hook in the bathroom? Can you put your toys in that box, and let's make a game of it and count to 27 and sing and dance, and let's get you to help me to do that. So you are therefore responding to your children's needs rather than reacting. So I think is a very important thing. There's more about that pause button technique on my website if you're interested to learn more about it. This is the camcorder technique. This is like Big Brother. It's a camcorder on your shoulder. All of this stuff is imaginary, but it's noticing what you say. It's noticing how you say it. It's noticing your tone of voice. It's noticing your body language, because this is about becoming self-aware as a parent. And from this simple camcorder technique, you can see if you like what you're doing. Is it working? Perhaps it's me that starts off rather aggressively or crossly, and therefore the children react to me. Now, this is not about beating yourself up, giving yourself a hard time. It's about observing yourself. And it can follow you around for over a week, noticing different circumstances, how you react, what you say, how you do it, so that you can perhaps change some of the things that you're doing. So that's just a very simple camcorder technique, again, about making you more mindful around how you're handling circumstances in your kids' lives. Now, this is about self-esteem for the kids. This is a toothbrush technique from my new journal called the Can Do Kids Journal, Discover Your Confidence Superpower. I link it to toothbrushing because it's something that we do first thing in the morning, we do last thing at night. Now, it's great if they look in the mirror as they're brushing their teeth, they can say it out loud. You don't have to be there, but it's a habit. So I like things to be, you know, kind of naturally there for them. They brush their teeth and they say out loud why they are special. You know, I'm proud of myself for being kind to my sister. I'm good at football. I'm great at fractions at maths. I'm really good at, you know, mini beast hunting. I don't know what it can be. I'm respectful to my grandmother. But the more the kids do it through brushing their teeth, the more they build their self-esteem. You watch their shoulders go back, they start to bloom and they start to blossom, because it's okay to say what you're good at. In Britain here, we tend to be a little self-conscious. In America, they don't have that problem. Sorry about that if you're American, but they tend to be more self-assured. But we need to encourage our children to recognize what they are good at. And it can be all sorts of things. It's not academic. This is about all sorts of wonderful soft skills too. So it's a good idea to link it to brushing their teeth. And, they can say what they're good at, like Lego, building castles, or Minecraft, or swimming, if we ever do that again, and drawing. So that's the toothbrush technique for in the morning. And then in the evening, it's a really nice thing to link to what they're grateful for. I've gone on to the next slide around this, but in the evening, being grateful when they brush their teeth for maybe two things during the day. And of course, you start off with the obvious, and then you go down to the deep and meaningful. You might say, I'm really glad for my eyesight. I'm really glad for running water. I'm really glad that, grandma is safe. So those two things have been linked time and time again, gratitude and sort of linking that to well-being. Loads of studies show that people who have a more positive mindset feel, better about life and about themselves. This is a lovely activity. Again, it's in my journal. I do it on my workshops with kids or when I work one-to-one with families. We don't often do this. We don't talk deep and meaningful about what we love about our children, and we tell them. We don't often tell them what we respect about them and tell them. And we rarely tell them really what we admire about them. And this came from when I was working with a family once, and the dad turned to his teenage, they were having some trouble with some bits and pieces, and we did this exercise. The father turned to his teenage son, and he told him what he loved about him, what he respected, and what he admired about him. And I don't think his son had ever been told that. And we had to get the tissues out, actually. It was such a magic, what I call a magic moment. But it is a lovely way to build a child's self-esteem. And you can get postcards of this, or you can do it where you ask uncles and aunties and grandparents and friends, and maybe when we're back at school, you ask teachers or friends, what do you love, respect, and admire? And I have a little postcard, and they receive it, send it as a stamp on it. And it's a wonderful thing for children to receive. It builds up their self-esteem. Just a simple idea, but you might like to try it. The other thing I used to do when I was teaching is I had a bucket filling attitude in school. It's a wonderful book called Have You Filled a Bucket Today? I didn't write it, but it's a wonderful thing about the attitude to having positive words and things that we do to help people. Children in my class used to have a little bucket, and if they went out to play and they said something nice, we used to put a sequin into their bucket, or they were during the day, he said something nice to me, he was kind to me, he was helpful to me, all these wonderful things. And then the opposite of that is kind of like a shortcut. Then you have a bucket dipper. So if somebody says something unkind or negative, or sibling rivalry getting a bit out of hand, you pull it back and say, well, you're bucket dipping, and then it resets it and everybody goes back to being a bucket filling family. If you're interested in that, there's lots more of that on my website, of course, as well. But just these attitudes of change and some ideas that might help, trigger into more positive things. Also, this is my easy peasy lemon squeezy button, which is dead simple, and I did it with kids in school, and now I do it with families. When children get things right, we need to make sure we are telling them they're getting things right, they're doing it well. We're very quick to criticise. When I used to walk around supermarkets with kids, you could hear the parents nagging them, getting on to them a bit, and I felt, gosh, it'd be much better if you looked for what they get right and praised them. And then we do something silly. So when they eat their broccoli, you press the button and it goes, that was easy peasy lemon squeezy. When they brush their teeth and they don't want to, that was easy peasy lemon squeezy. Oh, you've got that revision you've got to do around geography. That was easy peasy lemon squeezy. So it's a silly thing, and I actually used it myself when I was learning online banking quite a long time ago, because I didn't like it. And the first few times I did it, I pressed my button, and it's actually based on positive psychology. It's called an anchor if you're interested in NLP. I'm an NLP master and trainer. It's actually an anchor to make people remember that it's fun, lively, but it is easy. And if you tell your brain it's easy, it gets used to that idea of, oh yeah, it isn't so bad after all. Like using this new platform. It's not too difficult so far. Right, we come on to the next. You can see all about that again on my website if you're interested in using that with your kids. Works with any age. So let's look at practical do's and don'ts for successful co-parenting. Right, well, it's not the divorce that causes the greatest amount of harm actually to children. It's the levels of conflict that they experience between their parents. So let's look at, and I specialise in this area actually. I've worked with hundreds of families and parents around do's and don'ts around co-parenting. So a divorce, of course, can be a very difficult time for everyone, and I have been through a divorce myself, so I do know firsthand what it was like, and that's possibly why I wrote so copiously and created so many different resources for children, including my divorce journal for kids. But it's difficult. You're no longer together, but you are still parents, and that is very important to your children. What's vital is that you put aside your differences and you focus on raising your children to be happy, confident, and resilient. That's the important part of this, not the fact that you can't stand each other or you don't like each other anymore despite living apart. Now, some people can do it well. It's not easy, but it's important. You don't do it the first few weeks of, separating and divorcing. Of course not. That's not realistic. But if you have that intention to not damage your children through this process, unduly, then you can manage it more positively. And co-parent, as I said, is not easy, but it really is worth it for the long-term well-being of your children, because you are the blueprint for relationships, because they're learning and listening and looking at you to manage love and what relationships look like. Are they respectful? Are they verbally abusive? Are they physically abusive? So I also want you to remember that divorce is a process, not an event. It's not just one day it's this and the next day it's that. It can take any major life change, whether it's bereavement, divorce, redundancy, can take up to 2 years psychologically to adapt to. Now, of course, it's not exactly 18 months to 2 years. We're all different. But studies have shown, and I'm an Adlerian psychologist, and studies have shown that it takes you up to 18 months to 2 years to get used to any major life change. So be forgiving of yourself, of your partner, and of your children. So if you can be at all amicable, or at least respectful, that will give your children stability and security and, of course, a close relationship with both of you. So let's have a look at divorce without damage. I've got about 163, I think it is now, articles on divorce on my website under my blog. So if you're interested in all aspects of divorce and separation and ideas around support for that, go and check out my blogs around divorce. But I work with a lot of families around their parenting plan, because that will help you think of lots of the issues related to co-parenting from now on. And it's interesting to move your relationship into a business relationship, if you like. Again, that's not quick and simple, but it's important to get respect, is the key energy of any divorced family. Actually, respect is the energy of any family at all. And, from now on, you want to get those conversations clear without anger and without misunderstanding. Again, that takes time and patience. It's not always easy, but you should be, mature about this if you can be, because children will be watching and learning. So one simple thing, there's no magic formula, but one simple thing I suggest is that when you're negotiating or talking or creating your parenting plan, you put the picture of the children at the center of the table. I remember doing this with a family, and the dad was saying whatever he was saying, and I just simply said, what do you think Ruby will think of that? And he looked at the picture and he went, oh, no, that's not a good idea. So it focuses you down on the most important people at this time, I think, which are your children. And I think dignity, if you can, and put aside your differences and go for dignity and respect, then I think, the best interest of the children at heart. It's important that, as I've said, you are the blueprint for your children in harmony and happiness. So the parent plan is, it's going to be looking at things like schooling, finances, but it's also, as, Owen Mitchell will know, it's always about extracurricular activities. It's about dental care. If you've got special needs children, if you've got a child with medical needs, who's going to do what, how you're going to agree it, who's going to see them at Christmas, what's going to happen at their birthday, how will both sets of grandparents see their children, which is really important. You don't want that to get damaged either. So a parenting plan is a very good idea, and I can help you with that, or I'm sure so can Owen Mitchell. Now, children who feel confident in the love of both of their parents adjust more quickly and easily to divorce, and they have better self-esteem. So let's look at ways to make parenting work. The key to successful co-parenting is to separate your past personal relationships with your ex from your current co-parenting relationship. Now, as I said, it's difficult, but it's important. I've said already that you should think of it more as a business transaction or certainly a business relationship. See it as a completely new relationship. Park up all the emotions of stuff. This is entirely about the well-being of your kids and not about either of you. I've told you about the photograph on the table. Because the co-parenting partnership, they'll notice, that how to handle conflict generally in their lives. Your marriage has ended, but the relationship and family hasn't ended. It's changed. And I think that helps. It's more forgiving to say it's ended, it's broken. I don't like those words. How you use your words around this difficult time is important to children because, they'll still be your children. You still love them unconditionally. And that's your priority. And once they know that, and, if you can sing from the same song sheet, that will always help. That will help your children feel secure because when a child is confident of both their parents' love for them, they adjust more quickly and easily to the divorce and the changes and their new living circumstances, and they do have better self-esteem and better self-confidence. Children also benefit from consistency. So it's very important to try to find common grounds, rules around bedtime. Technology is a big one. Homework is another. But if you could try and keep to something similar, the discipline and in both households and the rules and the routines, then they'll know what to expect and what you expect of them. And then they'll feel more relaxed, at ease and free from tension and anxiety. But, this is not always easy. And, some, kids go to their dad's house. I'm not picking on the dads, but, they're allowed to stay up really late, play Minecraft, eat popcorn and do all sorts of things, and then mum has to do the homework and eat the broccoli, make them eat the broccoli and brush their teeth. But the important thing is to remember that children will adapt to all of these circumstances. Things will calm down and go into a more relaxed kind of way of being. So, try and cooperate and try not to play one, don't let the children feel pawns in a game that they don't understand, playing one parent off against another one. It's important really for long-term anxiety and mental health issues that you work hard together at reducing the stress for your children. There's an article that I have written, only one, but this is just the one around helping children to feel nurtured and supported and heard. They feel heard, they feel understood. And I remember when I was working in a school, there was a little 8-year-old and she said, I sit at the top of the stairs and I just hear them arguing and no one's listening to me. Why is it that I have to move and get all my rucksack ready on a Friday and move to, somebody else's house? But even just listening to your child without judging, without trying to rescue them, without trying to fix it, just lets children feel expressed, and that helps them relax. It helps them feel understood, and that really does help. And there are some things that perhaps you can change and help them with. You've got to try and adapt them to different parenting styles. Your former partner's style might be really different to yours. That may well have been a source of conflict for you during your relationship. And that might, take some time to get used to because they may have different values and different beliefs to you. But do take the longer-term view. They may eat popcorn and stay up late, as I said, on Friday nights at your ex's. But, you are doing your best and you're giving them values around eating their broccoli and doing their homework. So try not to sweat the small stuff if you can. Just keep the longer-term view, keeping your child safe, secure. Different parenting approaches and styles can help your child actually learn that there are different rules and different things around in society too, and they adapt and they soon get the hang of how things are different in one family to another. But one important thing is to help your child feel very connected and bonded to the other parent. If it's not too upsetting for you, you could keep a framed photo of your family or a photo of your child with their mum or their dad in their bedroom because you've parted, but that's still their parent, and they miss the other parent, and they may like to see a photo of them. So if you can do that, that will help your child feel, respected around that. Do try and be positive when your child is doing something at the other parent's house. For example, wow, that looks like a great garden. What a fun weekend you've had building a den, rather than what did he say? Why did you do that? What happened then? That's not really helpful to the child. They're stuck in the middle of that. So the obvious things as well, send messages, WhatsApp, text, emails to the other parent if they're with you. Not too many if they're getting desperate and worried and anxious, but this just keeping communication open nowadays. Obviously, in lockdown, it's a little different, the circumstances, but they can still keep that relationship and keep it easy, keep it relaxed, and keep it natural. And do keep your former partner up to date. Your children will benefit if the other parent knows what's going on for them. You have an online diary or something like that, a calendar perhaps, or an app that you could use, because that shows respect for the other parent by keeping them in the loop. And of course, when the kids go back to school, do let your teachers know and staff know all around the changes that may have happened. And plan ahead for tasks and activities and events. You know, often when I'm working with families, it's when things get changed and no one sort of has explained that they've changed. A lot of animosity can go from that. So planning ahead, you know, if you want your partner or ex-partner to be involved in responsibility, like going to the dentist or the doctor with the kids, or, you know, helping them with school outings, you know, do plan these things ahead and talk and keep communication open if you can. Now, give your partner or your former partner some time to learn the ropes. If you did most of the caring with your children before the separation, your former partner might take a little time to provide and get on side with the practical side of caring for the children. And Kramer versus Kramer springs to mind actually, but it can be tempting to criticise, but do try and point out the positives, because this is their dad or their mum that you're criticising, and that's part of them, because they say things like, oh, I look like my dad, and you say I am like my dad sometimes, and does that mean you're criticising me unconsciously? Again, be prepared for your children's negative feelings, hold the space for them. When your child is with their other parent, you might feel lost and loneliness and disappointment or anger. So that's time to do a bit of work on yourself. Try and look at the positive side. Perhaps it gives you a chance to develop your hobbies or relax with friends, or what you usually used to do before lockdown. Keep your hobbies and interests going. Don't make your child feel guilty or responsible for your happiness, because that's far too much pressure on them, and it's not fair or desirable. Plan ahead if your child's going to be away for Christmas and things like that. I've told you about creating a parenting plan. I'm mindful of the times. Let's look at don't. Never use pick up or drop off to have those really substantial conversations, to talk about important issues. That's not the time for that. And don't make your child choose sides or burden them with negative things that they don't understand and need to be worried about. Don't try to manipulate your ex. The only one that gets hurt is, if you do that, is your child. Excuse me. Being a pawn in a game that they don't understand, I've mentioned many times. Don't accuse, discuss. Never transfer your hurt and angry feelings towards your co-parent onto your child, because they are already dealing with the loss of family unit and this new way of life. They need your support, your love, your trust, and you need to help them navigate the choppy waters. Finally, co-parenting requires a lot of cooperation and the mindset to make it work. You have to sometimes bite your tongue, and I've got all sorts of techniques and strategies when you have to deal with your ex if you're still in that angry state. But it's apart from this, it's about letting go of those angry reactions and really trying to think about the long-term view about how to handle this, so that, you know, you get it right for your children, because excellent co-parenting isn't easy, but the rewards with your children's healthy development make it worthwhile. Their schooling doesn't get affected, their mental health doesn't get affected, and that's very important. Here are some of my books and resources if you're interested in my conversational cards around divorce. There's the Divorce Journal for Kids, which I wrote to help children express their emotions, and it helps support and nurture families, you know, going through this rather traumatic time. There are lots of books and resources out there to read with your kids if you're going through a divorce or separation. As we go through this lockdown and come out the other side, loads of them there to help you chat. There is my parenting club that you might be interested in. There's webinars in there that I do monthly. There's quick win videos, 600 I think I've done now, from babies right up to teenagers and beyond. There's master classes about all my courses and e-courses. My podcast I do every week. It's free, and then I interview different experts around the world. So I've talked about dyslexia, brain development, aspirations, you name it. I've 80 experts around the world around parenting and stuff. And then there's a community forum as well. So if you're interested in joining my club, here is a special discount code for you that you can just pop in at the end there and come over and join us and find out, I'm passionate about parenting, supporting, nurturing and helping you develop happy, confident, resilient children. That's what I'm all about. If you're interested in my newsletter, which I think is very comprehensive actually about all the different things I'm doing, ideas and strategies to help you, sign up there to my newsletter. It comes out every Wednesday. Angie's getting really, really good at doing it and making it fun and colourful and helpful, I hope. And that's my intention. So thank you very much. Join me on Twitter as Sue Atkins. I'm a Twitterholic. Join me on Facebook, Sue Atkins, the Parenting Expert. Join me on Instagram, Sue Atkins 18. And thank you for listening. I hope it was helpful. It's only a bite size of what I could do, and I have talked too long already. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sue. That was full of practical tips. So I'm absolutely delighted about that. It's fascinating. We have about 6 questions or so that people have sent to us, so I thought we could try and rattle through them. Actually, I think your talk has sort of covered off most of the topics, but I'll go through them anyway and you can impart your wisdom. So, number 1, how can you co-parent with a parent who doesn't want to?
Well, that's something you have to learn to accept, I'm afraid, because you can never change another person. Although we really want to, and we know that this other person, needs to change, but you can't force them to change. So the only person we can change and manage our own emotional state is ourselves. And if we can learn to eventually, over time, make peace with that, do the very best that we can, nurture and look after our children first, then you have to try and just let go of that, because that will just make you explode with anger, resentment and frustration. And that's not good for you, and that's not good for your children either. So it's not easy, but over time, if you can just take the bigger picture and do your best, then that will really help you.
Thank you. How do I motivate my children?
Yes, I read that. Interesting. I am a great believer in dream boards. In the Candid Kids Journal as well, get kids out with big sheets of paper. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to see? Where do you want to go? What do you want to travel? Because we will be out of lockdown one day. I do my dream board or my vision board, depends what you want to call it. A dream sounds like it will just stay a dream. My vision is always about getting things practical, getting pictures off the internet, goals I set for myself in physical stuff, with my work, with my hobbies, with my family. You just create, and it's great fun to do it with children. I've done it loads of times with kids in school. And it's not just about academic stuff. It's about the whole, the holistic look at your whole life. And you can make pictures of that, and you can put captions, and you can draw and paint, because it's goal setting, really. And they can be short-term little goals, they can be medium-sized, and then they can be great big ones that may take you many years to get to. And then you break them down into small bite-sized things. Then you need to celebrate. What we forget is whenever I do anything, whatever it might be, a small thing or a big thing, I celebrate. Now, whatever that means, it doesn't mean climbing Kilimanjaro and going to Disney World anymore. It means, I'm going to have a lovely latte with, I don't know, and sit by the window and look out the window or something. Whatever it is that replenishes you, that makes you feel like a treat, and, sometimes it's a chocolate biscuit. I try to keep off those now from the happy cupboard. But it's rewarding and celebrating the small steps that you make. With children as well, encourage them. Notice what they get right. Don't nag. We tend to nag because we want them to do well. Nagging just switches them off. It goes over their head like the red arrows flying over the Queen at Buckingham Palace. They don't listen and they switch off. So notice what they get right. Praise them. Encourage them. Take an interest in what interests them, not what interests you. So if they're interested in Minecraft or they're interested in something on some YouTuber, they'll sit down with a coffee and go, well, tell me about this bloke. Why do you like this YouTuber? What's caught your imagination about him? So discover their passion, discover and keep positive. Don't put too much pressure on them, and get excited about what excites them.
Real. How do you allocate your children's schoolwork whilst trying to work from home and focusing on job?
Yeah, very difficult. I think if you start to reframe it into, I can work in 45-minute bursts, Depends on how old the kids are. But if you say to yourself, oh, it's not that I need 4 hours, uninterrupted, thank you. You have to shift your mindset about that. So that then also, depending on the kid's age, you make a jar, you decorate it, you make it fun, you make it pretty. That takes ages, depending on their age. You put in some 15-minute activities that they could put in there. You draw it, paint it, put it into the jar. So when they've got that 15 minutes of, oh, I'm bored, or, oh, I don't know what to do, or mum hasn't finished, or dad hasn't finished, they can go to the jar and it says something like, draw a painting of a rainbow to stick on the window. That's not a great example. We've all done that one. But you know what I mean? So that they've got something, a resource that they can go and look to that will be a short thing, an activity they could do. Another one is, I've seen a mum create another little office beside herself there so that the kids, again, doesn't matter how old they are, they're working alongside you. One mum is a clinical researcher and they were designing up a new kitchen, and the son, who's 11, got really interested in the magnet download, whatever you do to design your kitchen. He got really interested in that. He was messing around designing the kitchen that they were planning on so they could have a chat about it. She was alongside him. Then he went off to do some work, with her there so she could just reassure or help. So the going alongside, creating the office, if they're young, they love all that pencils and colouring. I'm working like mummy or daddy. So, think creatively, but think also about short bursts. When they're in bed, you can get a lot done, and at weekends. I wrote my first book, actually, when the children were little, by going down there every morning at 6:30 to 8 before they kind of got up. And as they got to teenagers, I could even get up on a Sunday and work till 11 o'clock because they never got out of bed before 11:30. So think creatively.
That's great. And I would add, with my team as well, don't forget that, your line managers, etc., will be or should be flexible in terms of, so if you say, I'm struggling today, I will always say, that's fine. We can make up the time elsewhere, etc. So I think there's a lot of employers that will be flexible at this current time. So do ask and do explain.
Yeah.
Next question. Sorry, go on, Sue.
I just think people are more aware of other people and how they're juggling. Yeah. And, you may work very productively later at night or earlier in the morning, and it's okay.
Yeah. Next one. How do I stop giving my 9-year-old boy what he wants? Because he keeps asking non-stop, and I have a lot to do, so I give up. I can understand that.
Well, that's like a toddler tantrum, I'm afraid. This is your confidence. You have to get clear about your own work schedule. You have to learn to be not your child's friend. You have to be their parent. You're not really popular sometimes. You have to set it up for what they need to do. Make sure that he's got alternative attention, so you can give him 10 minutes regularly, whatever it might be throughout the day or longer, so that he knows it's ring fenced, that you will play, listen, or talk to him or her at that time, so they don't have to attention seek at the wrong time. Also, be confident in your tone of voice and your body language about this is not the time, because it's like toddlers. If they have a tantrum and you give in after the second minute, they learn unconsciously, they're not doing it consciously, oh, well, if I keep crying, she'll give in again, so they'll cry for 3 minutes and you give in. And then, she'll still give in. So you're always giving in. They've always got the upper hand. They are driving the 4x4. They've got the keys to the car and they haven't passed their test. So you need to get ownership back of your rules. Just jot down, that'd be horrible, just jot down what is acceptable to you, what you want him to do when you're working, and then set him up, little outbursts of going to do his stuff, come together, little outbursts at lunchtime, let's get together, have a chat and a laugh, I've got to do some work for an hour now. So, be confident, but look at your structures and don't give in, because a child, otherwise he's in charge of you and you're not in charge of him. I hope that helps.
You. The next question was about how to motivate a 6-year-old boy and an 6-year-old girl and an energetic 4-year-old boy, but I think that ties back to what we've just talked about. So the last one, again, it's kind of been answered before, but the expectation from school and the expectations that the schools put on parents, particularly when there's no individual target for particular children, how do you deal with that?
I think you need to take ownership now at this very unusual time about your own child. You know your child better than anybody else, and you want them to succeed and do well at school, just as you want them to be happy and mindful when they come through this difficult time. So, some schools weren't very helpful, I didn't feel. They were sending home copious amounts of stuff. They were making them log on at 9:30 and stay connected all day. I don't know. Now we're not so driven by data. Perhaps we're going to be more driven about how we come through this mentally. So I think you take ownership of that. It's the same principle about going back to school. I'm not giving people advice about that. That has to be your own choice as well about sending them back to school. Also, there won't be any fines. The government has said they won't fine you, because that's been another odd business around that. There's lots of questions coming in here as well around anxiety about going back to school. I've written about that as well on my blog, and if you want to ask me any questions later on, on any of my Instagrams or Facebook, come over and join my parenting club there. Don't you ask Sue Atkins. It's a group on Facebook. I can help you with proper answers there if we're running out of time now.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sue. I don't know if you've got time just to answer one more question. It's about sleep, and it's very specific. It's how do you encourage children to go to sleep, or they're having disturbed sleep? The question says that they're not on the screens beforehand. Do you have any tips to get a good night's sleep for primary age?
Yes, I've written a lot about sleep as well. I've got a webinar and a masterclass and loads of blogs about sleep. Set up some routines. Children are in a different frame of mind. No screens an hour beforehand. Do the routines. There is something lovely called Relax Kids. They're lovely. You can listen to those, download those. That takes children on a guided kind of meditation story type thing that helps you drift off into sleep. Also, if you're going to talk to your child about any worries and anxieties they have, don't do it last thing at night, because then they're going to go to sleep, aren't they, with those things swirling around their minds. Sometimes they'd like to talk to you at that time, but find another time to reassure, to listen, to help them, and reassure them so that they're not anxious when they are going to bed. There's loads of stuff around bedtime routines and actually tips around sleep on my website, if that would be more detailed for you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you again, Sue. It's been a really, really insightful experience, certainly for me, and I was jotting down some ideas for when I take over childcare duty in about 2 minutes. So I will I think I might do a dream board this afternoon. I quite like the idea of that with my 3-year-old.
Oh, that's great fun. Stick on some music as well. It really gets you going.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, the 1-year-old loves to dance, so we will be dancing around the living room later. So I wanted to thank everybody else as well for giving us an hour of your time. We've obviously touched on the fact that everyone is incredibly busy, so we really appreciate you joining us. Please do leave feedback for us when you log off the call. I believe a feedback questionnaire comes up, so that'd be really helpful for us. Any further questions, you can contact us on the email address there, which is events@irwinmitchell.com, and I can refer you back to our website and our hub, which has lots of information for you. And finally, just again, thank you, Sue, and thank you everyone for joining.
My pleasure. Stay safe and stay well. Take care.